So there's no question that Jesus asks us to do work for him. I mean, I think there's so many verses in the Bible that tell us that and I do want to separate this from this concept of we need to do works to get into heaven. I mean, that is not what we need to do. And it does get confused and people go, no, but that's works, okay, to get into heaven. No, it's not. We are asked to do God's work. And in Matthew, it talks about, and there's so many verses, I've just picked two kind of sections. The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then he will say on the left, depart from me, you who are accursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They also will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you? He will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. There is no question we are asked to feed the poor and clothe the poor and work and do things for him in his name. Also, he tells us that if we do this, if we do things for him and in his name, he will produce fruit and he will be with us. We've just sung about how faithful he is. Okay, you have always been faithful. All my life you have been faithful. In John 15, verse 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. So fruit is not a subtle thing. I mean, if you've ever seen a fruit tree, right? It has flowers, okay, and then they go away, and then miraculously, there's fruit, okay? It's not a subtle thing. Fruit is like a thing. You see it, and it's delicious, and it is good for you. So you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. That is a very powerful verse. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Now, there are lots of people who bear fruit, but not necessarily in God and for God. And that is what we're asked to do. We're asked to do stuff and bear fruit for God. So really, if we look at, that didn't work. Or maybe it was the wrong one. So, we kind of go like, okay, so what have Christians done? Well, so what I thought I'd do is go back into like the 1800s, right, and the 1900s, and look at what Christians have done in South Africa. And so what I did was look through the Catholic system, right? Now, doesn't matter what you think about Catholics, the fact is that they have done stuff, right? So the first Catholic school was set up in Port Elizabeth in 1874. And at its peak, there were 335 schools run by the Catholic Church in this country, okay? Mostly in disadvantaged areas. I mean, we know of many political leaders who are educated at Catholic schools because they couldn't get good education at the state schools. So the Catholic schools provided that good education, often started by nuns and priests sent by the Catholic Church in the UK. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit of a personal story. When my father and mother left the UK to come to Rhodesia in 1955, everyone was horrified that they were coming to darkest Africa. Okay, in England. I mean, that's the English kind of thinking. These nuns and priests just came, right? They knew nothing. They knew nobody here, to darkest Africa. Okay, and how really scary that must have been for them to come. But they were coming with God, and so they came. And at its peak, it was the largest provider of education after the state system. So this is really before a lot of the private schools started to come up. But they were a significant educator of children. So we know these schools. So all the Marist brothers are Catholic schools. Most of the schools starting with Saint something, Saint Teresa, Saint Paulus, those are the Catholic schools that were set up, a long, long time ago. Some of them, so the Catholic system doesn't have a complete takeover here. So St. John's, St. Mary's are Anglican schools, so the ones we have in Joburg. St. Stithians is a Methodist school. So churches set up schools. They may not be run by churches anymore, but they started them. What about hospitals? Okay, do any of you know about any Catholic hospitals? Anything with saint in front of it is a Catholic hospital. Little Company of Mary in Pretoria. they set up Catholic hospitals, and they had 73 hospitals by 1950 that they had set up that were against the state system. Does that make sense? Like they were providing care that wasn't in the state system. They have all been taken over by the state or the private hospital groups. So what they have now is the Catholic Healthcare Association. So it's a big group that consists of 200 different organizations that fit within that Catholic care. And their motto is Matthew 25, I was sick and you took care of me. So that's part of what we read initially. What about orphanages? Anyone know about Nazareth House? It's been around for 137 years, started by the Catholic Church. And they were known, the orphanages that were run by the churches were known for taking on the apartheid government and were known for taking care beyond politics. So they are a significant thing in our country, the Catholic Church. Possibly we all know about Mother Teresa. She was the most famous Catholic carer, if we put her in that kind of thing. She just went to India and cared. And it created a massive organization, but her guiding kind of principle, someone needs to care for these people, okay, because no one else does. And there's also Methodist and Anglican orphanages and elderly homes, so those are still around. So the important thing is that the church has done a lot in our country, but I think we forget how much it's done and how big it's done. So we kind of think as the church is doing little things, but as an organization, the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church, and the Anglican Church have done a lot for this country. So my inspiration comes from Oceans, the song Oceans. I'm sure you all know it, and we're going to sing it at the end. When the first time I heard this song, I just went, whoa, okay, that is scary. Because it starts with, you call me out upon the waters, the great unknown where feet may fail. It's all based on Peter walking on the water when Jesus calls him. And what was interesting is at the same time as I heard this, we were doing a Bible study of John Ortberg's book. And I read this book once a year because the book is titled, If You Want to Walk on Water, You Have to Get Out of the Boat. Okay. How many people were in the boat? How many people stepped out? Okay. You've got to be the one. If you want to experience that, you have to be the one. So you have little worksheets, and we'll start with the questions. What does the call sound like to you when you are called out on the waters? It's very unlikely that you are going to be in a boat, in a storm, and Jesus is going to come walking across the water. And he's going to say, come out. It's very unlikely that's going to happen. So what does the call sound like? What call have you heard from the Holy Spirit? And you can discuss it, or you can be quiet and just write what you... And then how do you know it's a God call? Because sometimes we get ideas and they're not God calls. So I'm just going to give you 5 minutes to either discuss or write or think about the call that you have got from God. Yeah, just those 3 questions. There's more to come. First 3. Are you done?
Just the first one.
No, it's me, don't worry. Okay, yes. Where's my bottle gone? Right, so I do want to move on because there are entire books written about listening to God, hearing God. So we can discuss it for ages. But would anybody just like to shout out what the call sounds like to them? Discomfort with? With peace. So discomfort with the status quo, or... Right. Okay. Right, so discomfort with peace. Okay, nice one. Yep.
He's putting our hearts, he puts it into our hearts and puts things in front of us that make us step out.
Okay. Yes, he does put us in situations, doesn't he? Right. Anything else? Yep. Bruce. Sorry, Cordelia.
I just shared with the group. I think sometimes for me it's like a deep heart tug. You know, something tugs at my heart very deeply, and I might not necessarily always know how to word it or what to do about it, but then, you know, what Neville has said, then God comes, puts things before us.
Mm.
Just quickly, it's confirming. So there's signs that will confirm what God has said.
Okay, so that it's a God call. It's a God call. How many times have you sung "Break My Heart for What Breaks Yours"? Yeah, that. Yeah. You've sung it, right? Have you sung that song? Yeah. Break your heart for what breaks yours. Break my heart for what breaks yours. Yes.
Well, mine is God constantly calls me to do more, especially when I feel I can't do more.
Yes.
And when people
Yes.
are telling me you're doing too much, then I hear God saying, you can do more.
Right. So I mean, that the call comes in different ways, doesn't it? But it's certainly, there's a sense that God whispers to you, okay? I don't hear whispers, all right? God tends to shout at me. And if I don't listen, he shouts again and a bit louder. And he just keeps shouting until I go, okay, I will do it, all right? And again, I have the same sense as Michelle, is like I'm doing way too much. And the call for me, and I'll share about it afterwards, I get called all the time. And the call for me is when I'm saying someone should. Like someone should do something, right? And then I kind of go, but maybe I could do that. Maybe I I should do that. If I'm thinking that somebody should, maybe I should do that. So then, okay, so if we get a call from God, and I do know in this audience there are a lot of people who've had significant calls and have done significant work for God. I mean, I know there's somebody in this audience who was called to move a whole bunch of boxes of Bibles from the US to Malawi with no funds whatsoever and managed to get it done. I do know that Neville and Sharon got a call to go to Zambia for 6 years to teach people how to farm. That wasn't their skills, not their skill set at all, but they had a call. Sure. What were you working in before you went? Right, okay. Right, here's the tricky one. Here's the hard one. So if you do believe it's a God call, is it optional? Okay? Is it optional? You need to think about that. And what are your excuses? And then would you say that to God's face? If God was standing in front of you, if Jesus was standing in front of you, and he said, here's the call, would you give those excuses to his face? Oh, but Jesus, I don't have enough time. Oh, but Jesus, I don't have the skills. Oh, but Jesus. I mean, we've sung all of these songs today. All of them talk about, all my life you have been faithful. But not now. But not now. So in a sense, I kind of go, how dare we sing those songs? And then when he gives us a call, we go, but. Okay? So I'm going to leave that for you to fill in. Like, what are your excuses? And why?
Can I just give a testimony there? A little
Sure.
while ago, I had a bit of an excuse going on in my head, and God said to me so clearly, let the dead bury the dead.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to figure it out, but once I did the proper reading, it was a guy saying his excuses, but I've got a death in the family, I need to go back. But in his heart, he knew he was never going to do it. And God saw that, obviously, and said, let the dead bury the dead, pick up your things and follow me. So what excuse have we got?
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, we always talk about the fact that God equips the called, right? He equips the called. And so but we talk about faith. We talk about the fact that we sing Oceans all the time, and we go, that's a lovely song, okay. But do we actually act on it, okay? And why should we respond? I mean, the important thing is, like, we get called and we make all of these excuses. Why should we respond? Because again, from Oceans, and there I find you in the mystery. In oceans deep, my faith will stand. Because if you don't step out and follow the call, you don't find God. Okay, you find him there when you're at the end of your rope, when there is nothing else, when you are going, I don't know what I'm going to do here, I don't know how I'm going to do this. That's when God responds. But he responds after you've stepped. I don't know if any of you saw the Indiana Jones movie, the Holy Grail, right? Okay, towards the end of the movie, there's this chasm that he has to get across, okay? And there's this invisible bridge. And Indiana Jones goes, oh, you first have to take a step, right? And he takes a step into this chasm, and the bridge is there, right? So I'm not saying Indiana Jones is a movie that we want to play in church. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that's a powerful, powerful representation of what faith is about. You have to take the step first, and then the bridge is there. And he takes another step, and the bridge is there. So as he's taking the step and about to fall, the bridge is there. Okay, it's a very powerful reflection of what faith is and about the fact that there is an action we need to take. And I'm sure the people who've taken those actions before will go, yeah, that is what happens. Super scary to take that step, but that's where God is. So we do get stronger. So if we take those steps and we do onto the water, we take a step onto the water, and he says, I will call upon your name, and we need to move out of our comfort zone where we need God. I mean, yes, we'll find God in our comfort zone, but we really, really experience faith, and we experience God out of our comfort zone. Because when we're out of our comfort zone, my mother used to talk about me like Alison leaps in where angels fear to tread. Okay, like that is just my nature. That's what I do. But I found it over and over again. If you kind of just jump in, then you kind of go, oh, okay, this is what will happen. Oh, okay, this is what, and it's made me super resilient because not everything works. It's made me resilient, and it's made me trust God constantly because I'm always moving out of my comfort zone. And then it says, I'll keep my eyes above the waves. So if you feel that faith and you feel God underneath you, you get more hope, right? And you get more positive optimism because you go, yeah, he is there. He is there because you experience that on a daily basis. And then my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours and you are mine. We grow closer to God when we step out of our comfort zone and when we act on the call that we get from God. So it's all good stuff, right? No, it isn't. It's horrendous, okay? It is scary. Things go wrong. You think you're hearing the call of God, but you're not. So it's not a smooth ride, but all of that helps. All of that actually makes you better. So how does that play out in real life? So this is a bit of my kind of testimony. So I came to church every week and saw the vegetables. And every week I was going, someone should pick those vegetables and sell them, right? Someone really should do that. And after a couple of weeks I went, well, why can't you do that? So I went to Davina and said, hey, could we pick these vegetables? I mean, they're just sitting in the fields and sell them at church. And so that's what started the vegetable thing, because that's what you know about me is the vegetable thing, right? So we raised about 300 Rand a week for the church, which paid for the water to grow the vegetables. It paid for things. Did it continue? No, it didn't. But that's okay, right? It was a season, and we did that, and then we moved on to something else. So my big thing is, I've done a lot of work in Scouts and Girl Guides. As your children grow up and they want to do that, you kind of tend to get sucked into that. And I ended up, here's my testimony right here, and service is a thing that Scouts should be doing and Girl Guides should be doing. And I was running a Scout troop in Zandspruit, which in itself was a step out. I mean, if you try and drive into Zandspruit on your own, that is a step out every week to kind of go there and, Lord, please let me get there safely. Just the taxis are the problem, like no one else. So I was running Scouts there with no money, with very little resources, and we had to find a service project. And I heard about EcoBricks. And I went, oh, they're free, right? Service costs. You want to go and paint a school? That's a lot of money to find paint, to paintbrushes, get people there to the place. Costs money. So I had to find a service that was free, and so I found EcoBricks. And I think you probably all know what EcoBricks are, but this is what they are. So an EcoBrick is a 2-liter Coke bottle or any other bottle, and it's filled with plastic usually that cannot be recycled. So the bottle can be recycled, but what's inside it is plastic that can't be recycled, which, by the way, is most of the plastic that we have. Most of the plastic we have is soft plastic, so ranging from cling wrap to dog food packets to polystyrene trays to whatever. So I used to get a lot of bottles from, obviously, someone in an office who would laminate a whole lot of stuff and then cut it all up and stick it in the bottles afterwards. So laminated paper. So that's what fills these bottles. So we got into doing this, and my entire agenda with these bottles was to build one bench. Because I saw these benches. I went, oh, we can build a bench. Okay, so let's build a bench. And then I couldn't get, so what was interesting in Zandspruit, they don't have a lot of plastic. I mean, you would think they do, but they don't, because they don't buy stuff in plastic. Okay, it's an upper class, middle class thing to buy things in plastic. When you buy from the lady on the side of the road, you'll buy 2 tomatoes and 2 onions and you just put them in your bag. She doesn't generally give you a plastic bag. So there's not a lot of plastic waste. So I kind of went, okay, I've got to build this bench, right? I have to build this bench. So I found a website that said, do you want EcoBricks? Like if you want to donate EcoBricks, if you want to receive EcoBricks, just log on the website. That was the worst thing I ever did. Because they flooded, okay? And so I did. I built benches. And I built vegetable gardens. So now, everything I've told you about my life, does building come into it anyway? No? Am I a builder? Do I have no training in building? Nothing. Did I learn how to mix cement? Yeah. Pretty quickly learned how to mix cement. What I did understand is that every 20-year-old guy in a township knows how to mix cement. So I didn't have to teach anybody. I got taught how to mix cement. So I know how to mix cement. Okay? So that fits in with the doctor thing, right? So we made some benches, and we made about 15 benches in different schools, in different areas. We made vegetable gardens in different areas, 2 ways. So we made the benches usually in a ring with the bottles lying flat like that, with cement in between them. And then we also tied the bottles to panels so that we could get a bit of height, because it's difficult to go high on that. And then COVID came around, so everything stopped. Scouting stopped, EcoBricks stopped. But what also happened is that every source that I had for EcoBricks gave me all of their EcoBricks before lockdown to clear. Okay. So my back garden was full of EcoBricks, thousands of them, thousands. And we sat there during lockdown for the whole of 2020, as you know, and did very little. But by the end of that, I was done. I was done sitting at home. I was done doing nothing. And so during COVID, I started to hear this call. You know how you just hear this call and you go, seriously, I can't do that? Like, no one's ever done that. Why would I do that? And the call was to build a classroom. I had thousands of these bricks, thousands. I was never going to build enough benches to get rid of the bricks. I mean, that was just not possible. So I went, we need to build something big, like a classroom. Okay. So I've seen it built on the internet somewhere. I'm sure I can do this. Okay. So God brought a builder to our small group. So we have a small group at home, which actually we've come from Rosebank Union Church. And so a builder arrived at our small group. And you know how if you get a call from God, God does things and you go, you're very funny. Okay. That was my response. Like, very funny. Really? Really? I thought I could dodge that call. But no, here's a builder. So I said to him, would you be interested in coming to help me do this? And he went, yeah, cool, let's do that. Again, not funny. I wanted him to say, no, I don't think it can be done. Like, that was my thought, right? So he said, no, cool. So they then built one in Diepsloot. So I took my builder friend here, Peter, and my other builder friend, Arthur, and off we went to have a look at it. And all we came back was going, we can't build it like that. We can't build it like that. We have to do a better job. Okay. So again, lots of building experience. So we worked every Saturday. So we did it. Volunteers came in. We had multiple volunteers. Our Bible study came in for a day. We had various people coming in to help. And my daughter had donated money, and so her and I paid for the building. And at the time, in medicine, if you weren't doing COVID, business was bad for every other branch of medicine. I mean, people think that doctors did well during COVID. Only if you were a pulmonologist or a GP, okay? The orthopods, the orthopedic surgeons, sat around doing nothing for weeks. Why? Because there was no alcohol, no sport, no driving, no. That's all of their business, right? They had nothing to do. I would send an email to a colleague of mine who's an ENT, and he'd reply in 5 minutes, and I go, why are you replying to me? Like, he goes, I'm sitting around doing nothing. He said, literally, there's nothing to do. Okay. So the surgeons did nothing, the ENTs did nothing, the psychiatrists did a lot, the pulmonologists did a lot, the ICU people. So there was just a few branches of medicine. My business, sleep labs, shut down completely. Why? Because they're non-essential services. All the sleep labs were COVID wards. Okay? So I worked on Zoom for 6 months because I couldn't see a patient face to face. So medicine was not great. And my business was not great. I have a home study company that does home studies for sleep apnea. We went from doing 90 studies in March of 2020 to doing 10 in April. Still have salaries, still have expenses, but no money coming in. So business was not good. And in that sense, this was not the time to start building something, okay, where you were paying for everything. But we did. So, and this is what it looked like. So those are our 2 classrooms that we built at Teresa Nursery School, just down the road. And they are named Jessie and Eva, which are my grandchildren's names. And it took us from January up until July to finish one. Okay, and then we finished the other by September. They're using them now, so they're grade R and grade 1 classrooms. They're using them now. That was the second one we built, and that was the one in Orange, and that's a classroom out in Nooitgedacht, so not far from here. And we built it the same way as we built those ones, and that was the work that we did. And the blessing I got from that work was Johanna, that's Johanna standing there, is her husband called Kairos. Kairos had never built in his life before. He'd only worked in the security industry. He hadn't worked for 5 years. And we got trained via our builders on how to build. He's now my project manager, and I could not do it without him. So we received a massive blessing by doing that particular nursery school. He then built her a second classroom on his own. He said to me that of the money that I paid him, he would take a 2/3 and spend it on their classrooms. So that whole classroom now has a second classroom next to it. She's now running a nursery school in an area where there are no nursery schools. So the whole idea of the nursery school classrooms is working with Smart Start. So they train nursery school teachers. So they take women from the community who are looking after kids anyway, train them and as nursery school teachers, and then if we can, then I will try and build a classroom for them so that they can have a proper nursery school. It's very different being a teacher in a shack and being a teacher in a classroom. Very different. And the kids learn what classrooms are all about. So then the challenge was to build a classroom there. So in that little space that you see on the left, that little space, it's about 2.7 meters at the back and 4.4 meters coming forward. There's no space. And so the challenge was to build a classroom there. Now, we cannot use the same technique because it takes too much space. Each bottle is 30 centimeters. And if you do the walls like we did them before, then you're going to lose 60 centimeters out of 2.7. Now you're down to 2. So we went, okay, we need to do something differently. So I'd been playing, and you can see in the vegetable garden, I'd been playing with this idea of tying the bottles onto thatching lats. Okay, so I went, I'm sure we can do this. So we did it. This is how we build now. We put the bottles upright. They are tied on with plastic string. And then we hammer them onto the poles. So that's not this classroom, but it's another classroom, the first classroom that we built with this technique. Do I know what I'm doing? No. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of going, maybe we can do it like this. So, when you look at the gifts that you get, incredible problem solving is not there, but that's what my gift is. It's problem solving. It's like, put me in a situation, I'll figure a way out. So that's how we build now. And so this is what the children have now in that space. So in that tiny little space, this is what the children have. So that's what it looks like inside. Okay, I can't give you a picture of the outside because it's this far from the shack. So there's no space on the outside. We filled the entire space, but that's what they have for a classroom now. Because guess what? We went, okay, so now we've put these panels up. We need to do something on the walls. So how do we make those walls look like walls, like proper walls? Okay. So what we've done now is we take chicken wire and we hammer it onto the lats, and then we put building cement and we plaster it, and it looks like a beautiful wall. So behind that, if you knock on the wall, it's very clearly hollow. But you know what happens in these classrooms is if you go into the shacks that are there, they're incredibly hot. They're stifling hot. You walk into this classroom and you go, ooh, like that's aircon, right? Because of the insulation for the plastic, inside of those classrooms is beautifully cool, beautifully cool. So where are we now? So what's next? So, like God calls and I go, sure, why not? Let's do that. So this is where we're building now in Randfontein. So this will be classrooms 10 and number 9 will be in that. So that's a little shack that lady has. So Cynthia, that's the little shack. She has 20 kids who come to school in that little shack. It's 3 by 4 meters. And so we're going to be we're nearly finished the classroom. So what you can see on the right-hand side is the toilet. So we're building a classroom in the gap. And then once we finish that, we'll demolish the shack. They'll move into the classroom. We will build another classroom next door and a kitchen for her. So we're going to be building that. So that's why it says that's classroom number 9, and it will be classroom number 10 and classroom number 11. So that'll be number 11. And that will be probably by the end of that 10 tons of plastic that we have sequestered into nursery schools instead of being in the landfill. And all of that started with build a bench. Okay, all I'm going to do, I'm just going to build one bench. That's all I'm going to do. That's what I told my husband. That's what I told my family. Don't worry, I'm just going to build one bench. Okay, it's not quite what happened. But then what happened is my daughter, who has the very same heart as I do, my oldest daughter, said, and it's something I've also wanted to do, and so here's a challenge for you. It's an easy challenge. Every middle class, upper class school at the end of the year, when those kids go to school the next year, they get an entirely new stationery box. But they don't finish the stationery the year before. Like, it's not finished. So what happens to all of that stationery? It tends to just go home. Okay. What if we got all of that stationery and donated it to the nursery schools? Smart Start has opened 120 nursery schools in the last 3 years. 120 on the West Rand. And they have nothing. Nothing. They just start with what they have. Smart Start gives them some stuff, but you know how fast crayons run out. And glue. And Prit and that kind of stuff. So what my daughter did, my granddaughter went to school for the grade 1 at Blegari Primary. So what my daughter did towards the end of the year, she went to speak to one of the teachers and said, listen, could we do a stationery drive for those parents who don't want to keep the stationery? And so we did. And then they called her husband and went, you better come fetch the stationery. Okay, 3 huge black bags of stationery we collected. And that is my granddaughter, Eva, sitting amongst all the stationery. She then took it on, as only 7-year-old girls do. I will do this. Okay. And she started organizing it. So there was the box of crayons, and that was the glues, and this was the this, and this was that. So much so that when my daughter came back from work and tried to help her, she went, Mommy, stop. You don't know what I'm doing. Okay? So we just left her, and she did all of that. No, I don't know where she gets it from. Haven't a clue where she gets that from. And so then my daughter went, if you're coming to my house for Christmas Day lunch, and she was hosting the family lunch, with like 4 families. If you are coming, the cost of coming is stationery bags. Okay. So you have to bring stationery bags. So we collected about 40 stationery bags. And then the grandchildren and I sat and we equipped all of these stationery bags. And we handed out 40 stationery bags to Smart Start to say, please give out to teachers. And I still have stationery. This is in my spare time, people. Okay, this is in my spare time. So that was an extension. And then because Neville knows that I'm doing this, he goes, hey, listen, King's School, we just tossed out a whole lot of desks. Would you like them? No, he didn't. He told me on the Sunday, and I said, sure. Do I know where those desks are going? No, but I'm not letting them rot. That's for sure. We're going to find a home for them. So Monday, I take all my builders out to Randfontein. So that's what we do on Monday. They now stay over, fortunately. So I can take them out there with Kairos, who has learned over 3 years to be a project manager, who has learned everything that needs to be done, because my life does not include building. I don't have time to build myself. So it has got to the point where I can take them out and leave them there, and they stay over for 3 days. And all I have to do is go to the hardware store and say, please deliver 2 cubes of building sand. I can't tell you how much I know about building now. 2 cubes of building sand, 6 bags of cement tomorrow, please hand over the credit card, go, boom, done. So each place we go into, firstly, we try to involve the community, make friends with the community, and build a school. That's what we do. So the desks are sitting, that is my front garden. They are sitting there right now. They are sitting there because we could not move the trailer once the desks had been loaded onto it, so we had to offload the desks to move the trailer. So what has my progress been in this whole thing? My faith in God has increased because there is no way I could have done this if I was not walking with God. I mean, I'm not equipped. I'm not a builder, never have been a builder, never want to really be a builder. It is not something that I saw ahead in my life, like one day I'm going to be a builder. Like, it's just not. So I can't do this alone. I need funds, so God has increased my income. Okay, because I'm good at earning money, apparently. So he's increased my income so that I can pay for the classrooms, because I do pay for them. So, and each time I have gone, can I afford to pay 3 builders for 2 days a week? God has gone, yeah, here's some more money, okay? Or here's some more talks to do. So, I mean, talking for pharmaceutical companies is what I do. I mean, it's a really good income. And he'll go, okay, so here's another pharmaceutical company to talk to, right? Or he'll go, here's this, or here's that. You've got the money. Be safe, you have the money. So now this year it was, can I afford to pay 3 builders for 3 days a week? And God went, sure. So each time I have made that step, which for me is about money, God has said, sure, here it is. Okay. So I get donations, so my daughter continues to support. So we had a problem with with one of the bank accounts. So she came to me and she goes, so, because I don't know where she gets this from either. So, my WhatsApps from my daughters always begin with, so. Okay. So she sent me a WhatsApp yesterday. So, when were you going to tell me that you're preaching? Okay, sorry, I forgot to do that. So she says, so, because you won't the bank account, you won't tell me what's happening with the bank account. I've lost. No, she lost the details for the bank account. She went, so we went to Macro. So she walked in my house with 12.5 kilos of maize and a whole bunch of tinned fish and a whole bunch of tinned tomatoes and just food. And she went, I know you need food, so here's food. So she's great. And that's all she does. When she's at Macro, she has another trolley, which is my trolley, and she just brings it. Blairgowrie Primary also donates stationery and some instant grass, which I still have to go and fetch. I have learned to make friends in the most unlikely places. I'm not a natural extrovert. I'm not a person who makes friends easily. But I've learned to make friends. So in Swartkops, which is just up the road to the right, which is where we made that tiny little one, those roads are just roads in name only. I mean, they're not really roads, okay? I had to make friends with the person at the bottom of the road. So we went into the road, we would offload, she's halfway down the road, go through this little space to get to her. I had to make friends with the guy at the bottom of the road because that's the only way I could turn my trailer around. And I just walked down there and I just had a conversation with Fani, who became my best friend after a while. Especially when I would go there on a Monday and I'd drop off and he'd help me turn the trailer around. And then he'd say, Madam, the babalas is strong today. And I'd go, what do you want? And he'd go, just a 2-litre Coke. And I would go to Builders down here, and then I'd bring a 2-litre Coke back. So it was the least I could do for all of that, for the help that he gave me. And I have communities. I can go into various townships, and people will go, hi, ma'am, because they know my car, they know that what I do, they know that I'm coming there, and they know that I'm helping them. I've had tricky situations. I mean, I have. So the one we went to build out in Swaneville, I went there and I was told that everything had been paid for, we were ready to go, and suddenly there was 3 or 4 large black gentlemen saying that I couldn't build here and what was I doing here and blah, blah, blah. So I've had situations where I've had to go, okay, calm down, let's find this guy and let's do that and let's do that. So it hasn't all been great. I have built a classroom that I'm not sure it's going to work, but I just have to trust God with that. I can't control that. I've had to learn to deal with adversity, so I've had to fire 2 builders. One builder who assaulted another builder who was a problem. He was a problem child, but I thought maybe he will we always hope that people will get better. He didn't, and then he assaulted somebody else with a brick, and I went, right, you're out, okay? Then the other builder who turned out was actually taking my money and putting most of it in his veins through some kind of drug or other, so he had to be fired as well. And the last place I went to build was in Swaneville, in the middle of nowhere. There was no running water, there was no electricity, there was nothing. So I had to buy the JoJo tank to supply the water. So it's not all smooth sailing by any means, but each time God has said, you can do this, just keep going. Most importantly, my soul is happy. Okay, because I know that I'm using my money for good. I know that I'm using my time for good. I'm employing 3 people, and thank you. So and I think it is about that. When you step out and God proves that he is there, then you kind of go, yeah, he is a good God. So it's one thing seeing about a good God, and it's another thing experiencing a good God. That for me is really important. So you have to say, what has God asked you to do? And think, am I going to give those excuses? So do I have time to do the building? No. Have I been told by multiple people that you need to give up this building because you don't have time to do it? Yeah. Lots of people in my professions like, how the hell do you have time to do this? And I go, I don't really. But you have to. You can't turn around to God and say, look, that was cute, okay. Thanks for the call, but I don't have time. Because honestly, we should all be giving a chunk of our time to what God has called us to do. We should be. But we tend not to. We tend to do work and we tend to other things. So it's really important. So the last little section, what I want you to do is just write, what is your gifting? And don't necessarily think about the gifts of the Holy Spirit, which is what we tend to think about. Because I kind of look at that and I go, yeah, not many of those, but there are other gifts that you have. I mean, are you good at talking to people? Are you good at mobilizing communities? That's not necessarily in that list of gifts, right? But there are some people who are good at mobilizing communities. Are you good at organization? Okay, so we all know Davina is good at organization. Like, don't mess with her, okay? Things will be organized. Are you good at organization? What are you good at? And then what are your direct assets? So what do you have that you can use, which might be money, it might be time, it might be whatever. And then what other assets or connections that you have. We are all parts of communities, but we don't often use them. And I'm saying not abuse them, but use them. So like my daughter's community at her school, use that community and say, what can they bring? What assets do they have? So those parents' assets, they have all of the stationery, and they go, I don't want any more stationery in my house. Like I don't. What am I going to do with all the stationery? And so they were happy to donate it. Happy to donate it. Then 2 actions you can do this week. So the point about this is an action thing, that at the end of hearing the call, there needs to be an action. So to sit down on 2 actions you can do this week to move in the right direction, which might simply be, I'm going to phone this person. That's an action, right? But it is that step outside. I hate phoning people. It's not my thing. I'd much rather WhatsApp or email. Like, yeah, just my thing, not my thing. So, but WhatsApp people, like try and mobilize a community, like talk to the people around you. 2 actions that you need to do, because I promise you, if you are hearing the call and it is a God call and you start that action, it'll move. Things will happen. May not the first phone call, but the second phone call. But you need to be moving in the direction. Does that make sense? You cannot sit back and go, God, give me something to do. No, there are plenty of things to do. Just look around our country. There are plenty of things to do. We started feeding people during COVID because I knew they'd lost jobs. We're still feeding people. Does everybody appreciate it? Nope. But we still feed people. So we get people who are upset because we don't have a packet of mealie meal and a tin of fish. And we kind of go, we just don't, like we can't make them. Like if we don't have them, we don't have them. And we do run out. So if you're worried about what to pray, you need to pray. Okay, there's no question that if you get to that point and you kind of go, here's what we need to do, here's what I need to do, you need to pray that God will work with you and ask him for guidance. And if you want something big, and we should all want something big, you should try the prayer of Jabez. Okay? Jabez cried out to the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would indeed bless me and enlarge my borders, and that your hand would be with me, and you would keep me from evil so that it does not hurt me. And God granted his request. Why? Because it's in God's path. Okay, enlarge my borders, enlarge my property. And it's a book by Bruce Wilkinson. I don't know if you've ever read the Prayer of Jabez book. And he does say in there, be very careful about what you ask God for. Because what we tend to do is go, we'll do this, so me, a bench would be lovely. Let me get enough eco bricks for a bench. And God said, no, how about 11 classrooms? That's a much better deal. Okay, so be careful what you wish for, be careful what you pray for, but be prepared to go with God because things will work. And God believes in you. I mean, you may not believe in you. Like I kind of went, I'm not a builder. God went, I can find builders, don't worry. Got you. I got you. Like just go in that direction and I'll bring you the people. I now have 3 amazing builders. They're 2 young men and Kairos, who's in his 50s. They're great. And they're constantly coming, ma'am, do you think we could do this? And I'm going, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Okay, so I can now go out, leave them for 3 days, and just things happen. Classrooms get built. It's amazing. So the message is, and go. And do. God doesn't ask us to sit at home and wish and just pray. He asks us to do. And prayer can be a doing thing. Like there are people who are prayer warriors. I'm not one of them. I'm much more a builder, doer thing. Okay, but there are prayer warriors. But pray. That's useful. Please pray for me. I need prayer. Okay, but go and do something. Find something you can do. Find something that God is touching your heart with and just do the first steps. You might end up building 11 classrooms, so I'm just warning you. Okay, it might not end well for what you think, but it will end well for God, and it will end well for you in God. Okay, so that's my story.